I am Marwan Cameron, and this is the Conduit. All right, y'all. It is Friday. Happy Friday to you all. September 24th, 5 p.m., 76 degrees in Kitsap County. It has been a beautiful week. Fall is here, but man, we're getting those last bit of summer wonderfulness. Not too hot, not too cold. You can wear socks and flip-flops if you want. It's great. I love it. Kind of my ideal weather myself, sunny, a little bit of overcast, warm enough to put on that light jacket if you so want to. Not so hot that you're just sweaty, but not cold that you're chilly. Beautiful day. You can pretty much do anything in this type of weather. So, as the weather, we are blessed and highly favored today. Glad to see another day. We got a real good show for you coming up in a little bit. So we're excited about that. We've had a busy week. We've had a number of people on this week. So kind of continuing on with our series of emergency management and emergency preparedness. How you doing there, Laura Smith? Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. But with emergency management, emergency preparedness, we've had quite a few people on, so many different walks of life, which is really awesome and great. So we want to thank all of them for coming on, and also thank our future guests as we continue to have these conversations centered around getting ready and being prepared. To that end, I do want to remind everyone that tomorrow is the Global Day of Climate Action. So at 11 a.m. down on the Manette Bridge, they will be marching to Evergreen Park. There will be speakers, music, booths, and more. So come and support and join. And there's a lot to learn, but that should be a great event tomorrow. Unfortunately, I would not be there. Some of my team will be there. So you'll see Mr. Rob and Miss Stephanie out there tomorrow. So shout out to them. Appreciate them filling in for me tomorrow. But tomorrow, Reverend Michael Ellington is being installed as the pastor of New Horizons Baptist Church. So I will be in Tacoma supporting that. So I'm honored to have received the invite from him to participate and witness that. That's a big deal. I haven't actually seen that before. I was invited to, and I'm not sure the correct terminology, but when he was installed as a minister and having to defend the Bible verses and kind of speak as to why he believes he was called to do that. So it was really interesting to witness that, and that was definitely an honor. So, I'll be doing that tomorrow. So I won't be at the Global Day event tomorrow. Unfortunately, I'm going to miss it. Otherwise, I would be there. And I definitely wanted to be there for that. But hopefully you all will get an opportunity to do so. And that being said, there is still space available for the Resilient Community Workshop Series. This takes place every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. That's going to go until December 16th out at Black Ring Spirits, which is at 1700 Mile Drive, Suite 116 in Port Orchard. Okay. And so the resilient communities thrive. This is a great workshop. It's a grassroots community resiliency movement. There is no cost. It's a free event. And so I actually learned a little bit more about it today. And again, this is something that one of our staff is going to be an attendee to the workshop. And at the end, they have a train the trainer piece to it, so you can go back and take it to your folks. So I think this is a really powerful workshop, and we don't often see things in the community that are free, right? Out of necessity, especially grassroots type things. Folks have to charge in order for these things to, be kind of brought to you, so again, the fact that it's free is just really powerful. I think that's awesome. So very much looking forward to that. So yeah, if you want to get involved with that, that is tomorrow. You can check them out on Facebook. I should probably drop that in the chat. Let me see if I have Mark's information already ready. If I do, I'll kind of populate that there for you really quick. If not, I'll try to put it up before the end of the show. But you can also reach out to me, and I will go ahead and make that available to you. I'm looking in here really quick and I don't see it. I have so many guests on, so I try to get things ready for folks, but we've had so many people on, I've had to delete some folks out. So I'll get that on there for you. But Mark, Boatwright Frost is part of Resilient Ecosystem. So again, the parade is tomorrow, and then the workshop is taking place every Thursday. Thank you there, Mr. Dent. I appreciate you saying that I'm looking and sounding good. Our person of the hour is here, so I'm gonna bring her on forward. And see, we've already got quite a few folks in, so they're excited about this one. And as we continue to grow, before I bring Ms. Flood on, the big thing is this. When we started this thing last February, it was a way to try to stay connected with our folks, right? Social distancing, COVID, the whole thing has been just a big strain on everyone. And this was just February. And so we wanted to create a space where we could communicate with each other and be the conduit, which means kind of a two-way communication device where folks can talk and learn, and different perspectives aside from the mainstream perspectives can be kind of shared. And so that's what this is. And meeting with different folks, which has been really powerful. This thing has grown, and to the point where we've had to do a show every week. I think I've done 9 podcasts this week alone, and I'm talking about from Monday till now, right? So man, we've grown quite a bit in this short amount of time. So I thank you all for your support. We're going to continue to go forward and elevate the voices that aren't typically elevated, and bring you information that you don't normally have. So if you didn't get a chance yesterday, I had Dr. Gib Morrow on from Kitsap Public Health, and we talked about my breakthrough with COVID, which is really important, right? We talk about the vaccine, we talk about the mask, and you hear all the noise on those things. But how do you take care of yourself if you happen to get COVID? So that's what we discussed yesterday. He had a lot of really good information. Talked about the equity declaration that Kitsap Public Health signed, and how important that is. And so change is happening. And so we just need to see that and support that continued change. But anyway, let me go ahead and bring Tracy Flood on. How you doing there today, Tracy? Give you some applause.
Hello, hello, hello.
How are you doing this fine Friday?
Feet on the ground finally. So I had to come in from Vancouver. We had our Board of Governors meeting going on down, and once a year the president of the Bar Foundation Board gavels in. And so I was down gaveling in the meeting and presenting a report there, and made it back from Vancouver in Friday traffic.
So tell me now, I might have a transportation company, but I'm definitely geographically challenged. What Vancouver are we talking about?
Down by Portland.
Okay. Yeah. You know what? It's okay to say that you don't know. I don't mind saying I don't know, because I don't know.
It's all good because we are uniquely situated as far as Bremerton and Kitsap County is concerned. You can hop on the ferry and get up to Vancouver, Canada. You can drive down the road and be at Vancouver, Washington. So that is all good.
I'm telling you, people make quite a bit of fun of me for the fact that I don't know where I'm at, and it is what it is. So I just kind of lean into it now. It's like, hey, I am who I am, right? I can't be perfect.
It's all good.
Everything else is going so well. I mean, man, there's got to be some deficit somewhere, right?
Yeah.
I'm
just as long as we got GPS and we got Siri and all that stuff, you're good to go. So it's all good.
And I used to be able to read a Thomas guide and get around, if you remember those, but no GPS, it's going to be a problem. I'm just saying, that's not going to go well. So thank you for coming back on. You've already been on as a guest
Yes.
previously,
Mhm.
and you're back again as it's getting closer to election time. And we
Yes.
wanted to, ask more hard hitting questions this
Sure.
time around.
Mhm.
Um, but I wanted, before we get into the questions, just let everyone know, what you're running for,
Okay.
and why that's important to you, and maybe just a little bit of your dossier, because I think when you were on the podcast before, you have such an impressive history that everyone doesn't know that, so they don't
Right.
they don't get to see that. Right? You're doing the work, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
there's Tracy, oh, there's Tracy, oh, that's Tracy, oh, that's Tracy, but it's like, well,
Yeah.
yeah, but Tracy was this, and Tracy was that, and Tracy
Mhm.
did this, and this is
Mhm.
why she's doing this and that. So just let everyone know again, kind of your dossier, if you will.
Okay.
What
Okay.
makes you you?
All right. So, of course, I'm Tracy Flood, and I am a candidate for Bremerton Municipal Court judge. And the Bremerton Municipal Court is a full time court that covers misdemeanors and gross misdemeanors. And in Kitsap County, it's the only full time municipal court. There's a municipal court also in Bainbridge, Posebo, and Port Orchard. And they're all three of those are part time. And in Bremerton, there's also a sitting commissioner who sits part time as well. Um, the significance in this position is there's never been a woman and there's never been a person of color. And in Kitsap County, we have what is then our district court and our superior court. So those are courts that handle things that are non-municipal, meaning county limits. And then limited jurisdictions are the municipal and district. Superior Court is kind of the top state court. Then you skip to the Court of Appeals, and our Supreme Court. But then also there's the administrative levels. So when you deal with courts, you've got your city, county levels, state levels, appeals, Supreme Court, administrative courts, and then being that we're a military town, you also deal with federal courts. So things that happen on the base will go through federal courts. And bankruptcies go through federal courts, federal civil rights claims. So those are all different levels of where we see judges, commissioners, magistrates. So in Seattle, they have magistrates for traffic court. So if you get a ticket in Seattle, you're gonna see a magistrate. You're not gonna see a judge. So there's so many things that encompass the justice system, so many moving parts, so many components. And this particular position, Bremerton Municipal Court, is very significant in that it's usually where a person is going to have a first contact. Get a speeding ticket in the city of Bremerton. Want to talk about it and have a mitigation hearing, plead your case, or say, no, it wasn't me, I wasn't speeding. It's going to be at the Bremerton Municipal Court. If it's in county limits, you'll go downtown Port Orchard, which Port Orchard is the county seat, but Bremerton is the largest, most diverse city within Kitsap County. And that is pretty much why it is very significant and the historic aspects that exist for this level of court and for my run. Some may know that I ran before in 2012 for a district court position, which is a higher level of court than a municipal court. Since 2007, I have been pro temping both on an administrative level and at the district court as well as municipal court levels. And with that experience, sometimes if you want to see change, and we know if you want to see change, we can talk about it until we're blue in the face. But if you want to be a part of that process, you have to engage. And since I was first stationed here in the Navy, I found myself working out at Bangor and had been taking classes at my duty station before, knew that the purpose in me being in the Navy was for funding for college. Started going to OC at night. I had to engage. I'm there at night, saw the issues that were there, got involved with the student government. So you choose based on importance. the things that you give your time to. And none of these volunteer positions are you receiving any type of income from. So you put yourself out there because you want to see change. Many people aren't able to give of their time. But for me, my passions led me to the community involvement. And again, that started with student government. From student government at OC, I commuted via the old fast ferry system to the University of Washington. And back then, that was fancy, you know. You didn't have to get on the big boat. You get on the little boat, and that's what they call it, the little boat. We're gonna take the little boat. So that system was a part of the state system. So I've seen the changes for the last 30 years of our community. And those changes have impacted everything from how we look at our roads, the congestion, the tunnel that's been placed at the ferry now to guide traffic off of the ferry. When we didn't have the hotel down on the waterfront, you know, and you had the small businesses on the corner where now you have the water fountain where Woolworths used to sit, you know. So that's how long I have been in Kitsap County, and I'm glad to call it home. My younger sister went to Bremerton High School. So involvement, while I'm commuting via ferry over to the UW, I was then coming back over to meet with the counselors at Bremerton High School. Because we lost our mom to breast cancer, she had challenges. And it was important for me to be in the schools to make sure that she had her needs met. And so education has been a pivotal part of the work that I've done. Mentoring, it's so important. And this was even something that, as an adult at the University of Washington, they partnered students with mentors. So that relationship is so important. But not only do you see my involvement from being a veteran unto being at OC, University of Washington, I can remember going into Washington Middle School as a student, bringing in middle school students and saying, you can do this too, bringing them on campus. So being that connection, that relation to say, yes, these are our middle school students who need to know at this young age, it's possible for you to be at the University of Washington too. That's been my heart, my passion. The University of Washington then took me to being employed with the state as a crisis intervention counselor. I worked down at Green Hill School. I worked at Maple Lane for a little bit, and Mission Creek before, when it was a youth camp and they were teaching the kids firefighting. So when we talk about the justice system, not only have I have my legal experience as an attorney, I have my experience of being a counselor in this system as well, to youth, a crisis intervention counselor, while I was at the law school before it moved up to Seattle. I was the last graduating class in Tacoma and working with young kids that were in crisis. So my heart and passion has always been letting young people know, and being a visual and being a contact, that you can do these things. You can achieve your dreams. You may have a setback, but these things are still possible. Don't let dream killers tell you you can't do it. I had the pleasure of sitting in on some training today with some of the professionals and they showed a video of some of the kids in the Federal Way and Kent school districts that talked about microaggressions and being told, well, for a black girl, you're pretty. You're the most non threatening black young man that I know. These are meant to be compliments,
Mhm.
but the harm that they bring because of the isolating and personalization that comes with that as an individual versus why not just say you're very smart, you're very bright, you can do anything that you put your mind to. These are all things that matter. Seeing someone in leadership that looks like you, that you can say, wow, if you can do it, I can do it. I remember the first time that I went to career day at Cedar Heights in Port Orchard. And some of the young people, children of color, and underrepresented populations there at the school came over and said, wow, you're a black attorney. Wow, it's so wonderful to meet you. And it's little things like that that make a difference. And so when I go for this position, it's not about me. It's about our community at large. It's about coming together and doing what's right for the greater good. So that's who I am in a nutshell.
Well, I appreciate that. So to be clear, you're running for Bremerton Municipal Court Judge. All
Yes.
right. So I want to make sure I get the title right and then
Yes.
pop that up there.
Mhm.
Audience, if you have any questions or comments
Mhm.
for Tracy Flood, please go ahead and type them in the chat. Now, I have 8 questions that were submitted to me to ask of you, and I'll get into those in just a minute. But before I do, it's important to state one, my intention is to extend a request for every official or person who is running for office to come and appear on the conduit and answer questions. Right? Community involvement is really important, and we know that there are many communities,
Mhm.
low income communities, BIPOC communities that aren't represented. Right? Uh,
Mhm.
we're so busy just trying to survive day to day, we're not thinking about that, or we feel disenfranchised and we're just like,
Mhm.
well, it doesn't matter, or it's rigged, or it's not going to change no matter who's in office. And so we're not really vested in it. And or it's a situation where there's not a lot of time to do that, right? And so
Mhm.
if we're going to change that, then one, we have to model the change that we want to see. We have to
That's right.
create a space for people to come and ask questions and hear about what people are saying, and then
Mhm.
ask things that are representative of the people that you will preside over, right? I
Right.
think all those things are important, and so we all have a place to play in that. We have a role in that,
Mhm.
and we can be powerful if we choose to do so and be invested. So if you feel like we hear people say, "Oh, it's kidnap county," right? So if it's kidnap county and that's your mentality on that, how are you going to change it, right?
Yeah.
You live here.
Mhm.
A lot of people that say that may have kids. You have friends and family members that you love and care about that are here in Kidnap County. So what are you going to do to change that? And so this is how that change begins to happen, right? We've got Tara Simmons, who was elected into office from right here in Kitsap County, and we know about her story. So we have Tracy's story, right, who grew up here, who's very vested in it. She's able to articulate many stories and experiences of what she went through and what her experience is and why she's passionate about, Bremerton and Kitsap and why she wants to make a difference. So I do uh, intend on extending that invitation out to everyone. But the questions do need to be hard, right? We see oftentimes that folks are, well, how you doing? And, oh, thanks for coming. And, oh, why do you want this? And, oh, so glad you came, right? Well, that
Yeah.
doesn't speak to anything about who you are and how you're going to serve in the position that you're elected for. And what we see a lot on the left and the right is we're a democratic country, right? And this is how we're governed. And there's good and there's bad. And if we want the good to kind of weigh out, then we've got to push forward on that good side, right? And so we can do that. This is, people say this is the best a type of way to govern in the world, right?
Yeah.
Of course, that's perspective, but that's what we believe, right? When it works well, it works great, and this is a way in which it can work great. So, yes, I appreciate you for coming on and being willing to answer these questions, because a lot of folks wouldn't, right? It's like, hey, it's almost election time, so if you ask me something hard hitting, that can impact, who votes for me or what the case may be. So I want to thank you for that. That gives you a level of authenticity that I think is going to be missing for those that either don't come on or don't make themselves available to answer those questions. You know what I'm saying? So,
Right.
I want to make sure that, I'm gonna give you a horn on that one. That really is a big deal, right? We don't see that often today. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So are you ready?
Ready.
All right. So these are the questions that came through. Like I said, I have 8 questions, and take as much time as you need. The first question is this: what are your core values, and do your everyday actions reflect those values? If so, please provide a couple of examples.
So I'll just I'll start with an example, and I think that will answer the questions just as best as possible. My daily routine encompasses talking with a lot of clients and people that are looking for help, mainly elderly people, our most vulnerable populations. And many of them have not been able to get attorneys on the phone. And many cannot pay for services. So I engage in conversation and giving out resources every day. And I do that because I feel it's important. Whether or not you can afford to pay or not, you're still entitled to justice. Access to justice is such a big part of who I am. And family. Because I consider those individuals I talk to on the phone, they become more than a conversation for me. I listen to their stories. I have people calling from Virginia, Utah, Arizona, because they have family members here in nursing homes, military. So my practice has never been limited to just Kitsap County. My experience has always taken me outside of Kitsap County. It has taken me across Washington State, as far east as Yakima, in Yakima Superior Court, and in a few of the municipalities. And my experience with the Board of Governors, being a governor at large, helped me to see outside of Kitsap County. That experience, one governor representing districts across the state for our licensed bar members. Traveling around the state for meetings, going to rural areas, talking with bar members, talking with the community. For me, that's who I am. That's all of the things that I've done as far as volunteer activities, as far as even employment, has been one in which it's a connection for me. It's how can I make things better for someone else? How can I better myself to help in areas that I see there is a need? So in 2018, I went back to school to get my LLM. And this was in response to my brother having a massive stroke. I was working with the Department of Labor on the federal side in a quasi judicial position, writing administrative law decisions and making decisions for employees that had been injured at a Department of Energy facilities, Hanford. My conversations with some of the employees, they're in their 80s and 90s. Sometimes I was the only voice that they heard. So once I went through that for working for 8 years and my brother having a massive stroke, I thought to myself, this is an area that people need help with. Guardianships, because not everybody has a power of attorney in place. Not everybody has family members to be able to care for them. But I had to, as an attorney, navigate the courts in Chicago. And if, as an attorney, I thought, wow, this is a lot. Imagine great grandma and grandma and auntie trying to go into court to navigate these systems. So I went back to Seattle University School of Law because they created a program, and this is tiny, for a specialty in elder law. And I thought, wow, this is very timely. And I received my LLM in 2019. And then the pandemic hit. So in 2020 to the present, I have been some of the only contacts that some family members have been able to have in nursing homes because of the specialty area that I work in. And I don't take that lightly. So my specialty area of elder law works hand in hand with family law, and I also do criminal law. And I used to be a public defender. And if you understand, elder law is an area of law that's a specialty area that touches so many other areas, and it's so unique because you also can deal with adult protective services. There's so many things that you can deal with. So that knowledge that I gained by getting my legal master's, when I say LLM, has been a resource to our community at large. Our military families. I've been able to go into REDSO, working with the military families. I've gone as far as north as Snohomish County to nursing homes to meet with family members. So when you say core values, that's what defines my everyday.
All right, I appreciate that answer. Reverend Ellington has come on. He said, sorry, he's late. However, what type of law does Mrs. Flood practice? It's elder law and
You got it right. Elder, criminal, family. You got it right. Yep.
And thank you, Christina. Christina put in the chat there the link, www.tracyfloodlaw.com, so you can get more information there. I'll tell you too, in full disclosure, one of the things that was discussed was whether or not to give Tracy the questions up front. I voted against that, but we did not actually get consensus by the time of airing. And so she did not get the questions up front. And I actually think it's better this way, right? When people have an opportunity to prepare their statements, I think it takes something away from that. When you're sitting in front of a judge and they are presiding over you, right? They're practiced and they're educated and they're using case law and all those other things, but they're like, oh, hold on, let me prepare my statements for you and whatnot. So a person should be able to talk about what their values are and answer these questions without having to have this stuff up front. I saw this kind of change just offhand, where as you apply for higher positions, I've applied, for dean positions and things like that. And they would actually give you the questions to the interview, maybe like 15 minutes before. And it's like, oh, this is so bizarre, but they do want some higher level, response on that. But I always felt like that was just really strange. So that's just a one-off. Anyway, let's go on into question number 2. What would the scope of your influence be as municipal court judge?
Very interesting question. So I like to think when you say the word influence is a word that is fluid. You, in doing your podcast, you have influence. You have endless influence because the world of streaming doesn't really have very many boundaries. So when you think about those in leadership, the influence can be positive or negative in anything. I believe that my influence as Bremerton Municipal Court Judge will be a positive one on our community, in that my background and experience is unique and unlike any other sitting judge on this peninsula. And I do mean peninsula. So that allows for me to be seen by our young people as a role model, by those that are deciding their careers, whether it's a second career or first career, to let them see the uniqueness and the diversity in my background and experience, that they can say, I can do it also. But also an influence in a way where I can create and make space for things that I've seen outside of Kitsap County that work, that we're not doing in Kitsap County. So I can bring that level of experience and knowledge and my skill set of writing grants so that there is funding to do other programs, but also to be able to say, we need night court. So people aren't taking off work. We need to continue to do Zoom beyond the pandemic for access. We need to look at therapeutic courts, just like the behavioral court that I just covered up in Jefferson County. We need to look at things that are working and things that aren't working. I think it'll be very important for me to go in and do basically an inventory of what is happening right now in Bremerton Municipal Court. Now, it's a court that I practice in, but what's going on behind the scenes? What actually has changed for the better and is working, and what has changed that it isn't working? So, the influence for this position is it's the presiding judge. It's important for me to be able to say, I have this amount of information. Let's get some more information and let's see what works. It's also important for me that what I've seen in Pierce County, where the judges actually engage with students for law day and for a judge in a classroom, street law, for being able to bring programming in where they're not there because they have a ticket. They're in the courtroom because the judge said it's your day to come in and let's get a tour. Let's see what actually, where the prosecutor sits, where the defense sits, where the jury sits, where the judge sits, where the clerk sits, how things run. That's the influence that I want to bring.
Oh, I like that. So you were saying night court, therapeutic court, and there was a third one.
It's night court, therapeutic court. Did I say a third one?
Yeah, there was a third one. Can't remember what that was.
We gotta go back and listen to the tape.
I got to give you a horn on that. I think that's I love hearing those two in particular. Like you said, especially a lot of low income folks and working families and individuals, it is very hard for them to appear, especially, like in a speeding ticket or something like that, where they do want to appear and contest, the ticket, and they're not able to do so. And it actually causes them to miss work and, to be able to pay for the ticket if they aren't able to be found in their favor for that. So I think that's really powerful. I haven't heard that before, so that's great, and that's why you ask questions, right? That's really powerful. Reverend Ellington says, "Great response. However, more directly, can you speak to the specifics on how you plan to influence the Black community and BIPOC community in a positive way if elected?"
I am unable to speak to specifics on that issue because I am bound by judicial canons. So I hope that my answer does meet the needs of the Black community and the BIPOC community, because these are things that aren't in place. And when you specifically say, more so, let's look at it as working class, those that have to take off work to be able to go into court and address things. Wouldn't night court solve that? And just going back, the third one I said is continuing Zoom court.
Zoom court, that's it.
Continuing Zoom court.
There you go.
Because continuing Zoom court allows for there to be access to the courtroom without having to be physically in the building. And right now, being physically in the building is being required still in certain levels of a criminal case. So district court and superior court have suspended trials until December. Bremerton has not. But think about it this way also. How diverse of a jury pool can you have if you're saying you have to be vaccinated to participate? You have to do A, B, and C. There's all of these additional restrictions that are put on you to be able to be a part of a jury pool. And again, taking off from work, finding a babysitter, all of these things, because it's not only you as an individual when it comes to underrepresented or minority populations. There are a lot of factors that come into being a part of a jury pool. And you add on top of that the pandemic. So I said in my presentation on Thursday, justice delayed is justice denied. But when you look at what's happening, every court is different. And no, you're not guaranteed that the jury would be on Zoom. Right now, you're required to be in person on your jury call day, and that's King County. You can't check in over Zoom for a jury trial. You have to be physically present.
Wow. And you know, folks don't understand those considerations, right? And as you said before, you know, like the field trip, and folks having access when they're not having to appear in court, and understanding how the process works, and getting an experience, you know, of that, from that vantage point, because that is one of our duties, right? As citizens, serve on juries. Uh, so our next question is, do you believe that you have the support of our local BIPOC community? If so, can you provide a few examples?
Well, I have a wonderful, wonderful campaign website, www.electtracyflood.com. And if you were to print out the number of endorsements that I've had, you probably have about 20 plus pages. So I believe I have the support that is necessary for a nonpartisan race, both Republican and Democratic support. I can, sounds like you want me to name drop. I could do that. Leslie Dobbs.
For me, that's not necessary.
Okay.
And
So
the reason
I
why,
will say that I do have the endorsement from Leslie Dobbs, our council person, who is a person of color. Yourself, it's on my list. Harriet Bryant is on my list. When you look at, as far as representatives, Mona Doss, I have my mentoring attorney judge, who is very near and dear to my heart. You'll see a quote on my website from her, Marcine Anderson, out of King County District Court. I've been pro temping for her, oh my goodness, for maybe 7 years, 8 years now, since she was first elected. And when we look at, again, on a local level, Emily Randall, Drew Hansen. When we look at those who are still a part of our community, who's no longer residing, Robert Bodie is on my list. So there are a lot of names that are there. Aaron Leidig. There are a lot of names there because these are all individuals that I've worked with over the years. My first board that I served on was the YWCA board under Linda Joyce. I had the pleasure of, when I first moved here, of working with Tuskegee Airmen, one of the first Black city councilmen. So Loxie Egan's, Alice Egan's, my work through the NAACP. I have been in the presence of great leaders of the Black community. I've been on the leadership board for the Lauren Miller Bar Association, our state African American Bar Association. I've been a part of the board for Pierce County Minority Bar Association, as well as president of that organization as well. So all of these involvements have included significant Black leadership. I'm a Tacoma chapter member of Links Incorporated. So for me, my relationships is why I can say I have 21 plus pages of endorsements. There's not one individual on my list that I haven't worked with in some capacity or had some type of relationship with over the years. I feel like I'm dating myself.
Well, you know
so last thing, I didn't just go out, 2 years ago and say I'm going to build some relationships. These are long-term relationships in work history. The only new thing that I'm doing right now is the Kitsap Community Resources Board. That's the newest and challenging because of Larry Ayers' long history that's there. So not everyone's happy. And sometimes when you're doing the work and you're making changes, it upsets people that want things to remain the status quo.
that's how you know you're doing a good job. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm.
If everyone liked you, you got a problem. Thank you for putting me in such high esteem with folks' names who I recognize.
And I must not forget Martita. She'll get me.
Yeah, for sure. Some of the names I recognize, some I don't. I actually met Leslie Dogs for the first time on my podcast last week, right? So I never met her before. But for me, and it wasn't required for you to name drop, but I'm glad that you went through that because it's important for the audience to know that. But for me, the conduit is for the everyday people, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so for me personally, that's not my question, but that's more important to me than the gatekeepers and the leadership that some have been around for a very long time, right? And if change is going to come, either they're going to need to change or they're going to need to get out the way. And so that's important for me. But thank you for that. That's awesome. Reverend Ellington says, win or not, what access to yourself, what will access look like to yourself going forward after the election?
I hope to maintain a level of access no matter what I'm doing. And I believe that as a leader and as a judge, my job will continue to be educating the public and making sure that when there are issues that arise, I'm not somewhere hiding, and I've never been one to hide. And here is a test factor that I believe. People are who they are. If you've always been a servant leader, you will continue to be a servant leader. If you're not, you're not. I'm not selling anything. What you see in front of you is who I am 24/7. I like to laugh. But laughter doesn't mean not serious. My my resume could have taken me easily to King County, to DC, and I could already have probably judge behind my name. And this isn't just me talking, this is people I've talked to who are in those positions to make those decisions. But because of my commitment, because of my heart to the community at raising my daughter here, because of the need that I see that is so great, that's why I'm here and committed. And people are allowed to feel whatever they want to feel. But at the end of the day, it's not feelings that you should be controlled by. And I say that because I no longer, as a judge, will be an advocate where I represent people, but I will always be an advocate for policy changes, making a difference so that we know that while there's been LFO changes down in the legislature, there are still barriers. The legislation says you have to be able to bring a motion and to get those things dismissed. And we know that civil survival has done a lot in that area. But at the end of the day, there are still so many in debtor's prison because of the language that's required for you to get your LFOs dismissed. And that doesn't include restitution. Mm. So being in that courtroom, presiding over that case, where I can inquire of the defense attorney, have you spoken to him or her about their financial situation? Taking the testimony up front so that when they leave out, whatever the resolution is, they aren't burdened with having to come back into court. So those are things that I can do in that position that aren't being done right now to help those underserved and underrepresented populations.
Excellent. Thank you. So we're almost halfway done. Again, you are watching The Conduit with Marwan Cameron. Our guest today is Tracy Flood, who is running for Bremerton Municipal Court Judge. Again, I encourage you to watch our previous podcast. It's a podcast in itself to cover all of the different things that Tracy has done for Kitsap community. She is a tremendously busy woman who has a long pedigree of doing work here in this county. So, you know, there's just not enough time to cover that and ask her questions. So I will refer you back to that, and of course, refer you to her website, which has been flashed. So the Elect Tracy Flood website and the tracyflood.com. And I'll continue to put that on the screen so that you can capture that information. Question 4 out of 8 is, Tracy, some BIPOC members of our community feel that if you are elected to office, you would not represent them, since many of them feel you have not represented them in the many years you have been a member of said community. If elected, in what specific, let me get to the rest of the question here. In what specific ways will you advocate for the pressing issues facing our BIPOC communities, and in what ways have you already specifically done so?
So I did see that question and felt that I weaved some of the answer into my last response, and that was in regards to I can't help what people feel.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, while I am sensitive to how an individual feels, I know how many in our community have called me at midnight and I've answered the phone. I know how many have called when they've been pulled over, when their family members have been put in custody. I know what I've done. And again, I don't wear what I do for no payment on my sleeve or expect anything in return. So it's unfortunate that some people feel that way. But again, I am just one person. I cannot represent the BIPOC community as a whole because it's not a one size fits all. Everybody's circumstances is different. Everyone's circumstances isn't one in which there's a quick fix because you don't know what's going on with an individual. You don't know. And I had a client say, you don't know what you don't know until you're in the middle of the situation. And sometimes that's because information is withheld and you learn it as you go. But for the first ooh, 5-6 years of my practice, I was a public defender. And one of the things I found in doing that work was there was plenty of times where I was in the Kitsap Sun as so-and-so's attorney. And there were plenty of times when I would go into the grocery store and be identified as, that's my attorney, because for every first appearance for 2 years, I was that attorney. I then received a contract for Bainbridge Island, where I provided public defense work. So if you came through that that system of needing a public defender, I represented a lot of people. And as you know, sometimes people aren't appreciative of everything that you do. But one of the things that I've learned on this journey is when you begin to look at an individual in the light that you don't look at those who don't look like you, and you had that public defender, Mr. Smith, and he didn't even take the time to talk to you. But I spent 2 and 3 hours talking with clients, visiting everyone in the jail. Any file that I received, I made it a point to get to the jail before they had a hearing.
Mm.
Now, that in itself, for me, was my work ethic and is my work ethic.
Now, you know what's interesting about that is, and this could be a podcast in and of itself, and we could have hundreds of folks on here. when we find ourselves in different positions of leadership or running for office, right? We have that extra weight of representing, all Black people.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have the burden of representing all of BIPOC, right? So it's like, oh, it's not just Black folks anymore. Now it's all of BIPOC, right? So, good luck with that.
And again, I think people, you can get bogged down into words. When you say represent, my work is not only in the courtroom, my work has been in policy changes. So when we talk about bias in the criminal justice system and the first forum that was done down at the state Supreme Court, I was the BOG lead on putting that symposium together. So it's not just about what you see. There's work being done behind the scenes that if people can't see it, they feel you're not serving them. So my work on the Bar Foundation Board brings money into our BIPOC communities through Kitsap Legal Services, through services that go to our communities of representation for our Native Americans, that begin to bring in legal clinics and attorneys to address those family law matters that you're not entitled to an attorney on. And now we see the change in the legislator with representation now for evictions, whereas before you were not entitled to an attorney. So the policy work that I've done, not only in my bar activities, but as NAACP president, benefits the BIPOC community. So when they say you feel I would not represent the BIPOC community, or that I don't represent the BIPOC community, who I serve is our community as a whole. And because of that, I'm serving our BIPOC community.
All right, I like it. The for the religious folks in the group, it's a fine line and a double-edged sword.
Mm-hmm.
When the Bible says you're not supposed to brag and speak about the works you do, but then if you don't talk about what you do, then nobody knows about it.
Exactly.
It's like, so what am I supposed to do? Lord, what am I supposed to do?
And I don't go around talking about myself. I don't. If I spent time going around talking about myself, I wouldn't have time to do the work because I'm busy talking about myself. I'm trying to do the work. And the benefits of that come full circle when I call for a meeting with the superintendent of education for the state, and he answers the call, and I tell him in a meeting that our students at Bremerton High School feel that since they've been on Zoom, they haven't been bullied. They haven't been harassed. So you may not see that, but that's work for our BIPOC community.
Right. I like that. There's another side question there. Have you given much consideration or thought about non-traditional sentencing? If so, what would that look like and how would you apply it?
There are certain things that you're bound by when it comes to sentencing and sentencing guidelines, which has been looked at on a federal level where there's some changes that are being made. But when I talked about non-traditional courts, when you're talking about behavioral court and therapeutic courts, mental health court, that is where you can see changes as far as traditional sentencing.
Great question, audience. Keep them coming. We're more than halfway through. From your perception, Do you represent the everyday Bremertonian BIPOC person? If so, please explain commonalities between yourself and the local community members. And I know that you may have some of these seem like they're blending together a little bit, but uh, just pick it
Yeah,
apart.
I think I answered that as far as policy changes and the work that I've done as a public defender. Um,
So I'll go on to the next.
and I think I'll speak a little bit to um, commonalities when you're talking about Bremertonians, which I always laugh. Creating that word.
Let me put my glass down. Don't make me sip.
Creating that word. As a veteran, as a single mother, I had my daughter my first year of law school. When you say connecting with the community, how do I see myself differently? I don't see myself differently. Other than I was born in Chicago, grew up on the west side of Chicago. I was blessed with having teachers that looked like me. So being here in this community, I understand the importance of that. I understand the importance of being able to see people in leadership that bring different cultures, bring different life experiences into the classroom, into our workspaces, at our government levels, and definitely needing it in the courts. And I would pose the question to those that pose the question, why is it so hard to say, I'll support Tracy Flood because she has been involved with the community? What other judge do you know in Kitsap County has been involved at this level?
Well,
that's my question.
Well, all right now.
When you look at the candidates on the ballot, what do they bring that will benefit the community as a whole? You have to weigh for yourself when you're making that selection on the ballot. Do you continue with the status quo, or do you want change? And I'm going to bring it down to another level.
All right.
How many naysayers was there when President Obama ran? Do we stand?
Quite a few.
In unity? The choice is yours. But my qualifications from A to Z are unmatched.
I might have to get a mic drop for that one. I'm just saying. All right. How quickly can we expect changes and review of potentially biased policies and procedures that may be in place at the municipal level? Is that something that you even do?
I plan to go in day one doing an inventory of what's going on. There are certain things that I know are in place. There's other things that are not so obvious. But my intentions are to go in and do an inventory of everything that happens.
All right. Well, it looks like you just got a vote. I got amen. Mic drop. You just got my support, sister, on my vote.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that. Now tell your friends and tell those friends and tell those friends.
But you know what? That's why it's powerful, right? That accessibility. Folks have questions, and in a lot of ways, even though it's 2021 and we have more access through social media and everything else, everyone still doesn't have access. So that's powerful, right? And with Reverend Ellington, he does work in the community, and obviously even he has questions
Yeah.
and thoughts. So that's important, right? And that's how you gain votes, right? And clarity and
Yes.
transparency is important. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. And he says, I will definitely tell my congregation. So,
Much appreciated. Much appreciated.
that's it. That's it. All right. So our last question.
Okay.
You've been
Because I'm gonna need some water soon.
you've been I've been
I got to bring my water bottle
the whole time. But you almost made me spit it out, so I had to put it down. I'm like, okay, I don't know what's coming, so I'm gonna just have to wait.
Okay. All right. Hold on.
Do you believe that the BIPOC communities have higher standards for their elected officials? If so, are you able and prepared to live up to their expectations? I think I know the answer to this, but go on.
I'm gonna tell a story.
All right.
Here's what is fact. I went to Seattle University School of Law, and it has a social justice environment and teaching way of doing things with a focus. And one of the things that was a commonality in our Black, Native American, Latino, our LGBTQ communities was we all were looking for ways to get back to our communities to serve them. That was a commonality. And trying to figure out how to do that. If we went to work for a firm, going in, putting in those 40 plus hours a week, we know it's more than 40 hours a week in firm. How can we take that income stream and still be able to serve those underrepresented in our populations? And here's what I did. For the 8 years that I worked for the U.S. Department of Labor in Seattle, I took the time to go to Renton because I couldn't get back over here in time, to serve in their legal clinic, to volunteer, because that was the most diverse legal clinic in King County. And they were looking for attorneys of color. So I spent a lot of time at the Renton Library talking to our grandmothers and grandfathers. And I say our, because this is our community. And I remember my director saying, where do you go on Thursdays? That's the one day of the week that you leave. You bring your car, you leave out of here. And when I told her what I was doing, because when you work for the federal government, there's restraints. So when I had to go in and tell her, because I had to fill out and get it approved. And she says, wow. For me, we are, as the BIPOC community, a community of families. And yes, there is a higher standard. Because for so long, we haven't had representation. For so long, there's been labels placed on us. We've been talked about. We've been talked at. And one of the important things about this job is listening. Listening and hearing the voice of the community. I am just one person. It's going to take all of us collectively to work together to make change in these positions of leadership. And this is an opportunity that doesn't come around very often. The current judge has been there for over 20 years. And I met a young man who told me he knew the judge. And one of the impressions that was left with him was the statement of, "You're not going to amount to anything." And he said he took those words to heart, but he didn't let it stop him from trying to prove him wrong. And today, he is a business owner. But that should never come out of a judge's mouth when it comes to young people. And that comes from a lack of experience that is diverse. If all you know is a suburban life and you've been spoon fed everything and never had to struggle, if all you know is privilege, that's what you will bring to this position. And that in no way will benefit our BIPOC community.
Absolutely.
And I feel I'm up to the challenge.
I love it. I appreciate you. When is election day? When is
November 2nd? You will be getting ballots around October 14th. We're out doorbelling, we're knocking on doors, we're doing everything we can to get in the community. Hopefully you've seen my signs up, and if you see a sign down, let me know.
all right now? It is important to vote. Your voice needs to be heard one way or another. So either vote, don't vote. Your voice is going to be heard, but make your voice heard. Get involved, or I might have to. Don't make me go and get the cane. I'll do it if I got to. Tracy, I wanna thank you for coming on. I want to thank you for being authentic. I do want to thank you for your service that you have provided to this county. Uh, long before I started doing any kind of community service here. It's good to hear about your experience and the things that you've done. I appreciate the fact that you're willing to come on and answer hard questions without being prompted for those questions, um, and not ducking away from any of those, because it's very easy to give a political answer, and we see it all the time, right? And we get so frustrated with it when someone finally does ask a real question, because you're either on the left or the right, and it's like, oh, look at all these softball questions. And so it's either a softball question, or if it's a hard one, then it's a dodge, right? And you didn't do any of that. And so that makes me encouraged to believe that change really can happen as we go forward. And I feel really hopeful. I've been talking about how in the middle or so of 2020 and 2021, things have felt a lot different. The collaboration, the collaborative spirit of people has been different. The energy is different. Folks want to move past, past issues, and we're a small town, so there's the Hatfield and McCoys, and memories are very long, like elephants. And it's like, okay, so you're mad about that 20 years ago, but that was
Mhm.
between the parents, or that was 5 years
Exactly.
ago, or that was whenever. So what are we going to do now? And then we could talk about it. I was just saying this earlier today. We can talk about it. We can even complain a little bit. That's okay. But eventually, you got to get to the point of, what are you going to do about it? How are we going to fix it? And you can point at everyone and wait for them to fix it. What are you going to do? You can
Exactly.
hear now what Tracy has done and what she wants to continue to do. What are you going to do? That is the challenge, right? So
Mhm.
if there are more of us doing it, change is going to happen. And if you
That's
feel
right.
like they're not doing it in a way that is agreeable to you,
Mhm.
you can do it.
Mhm.
You can do it. You
Mhm.
could decide to dedicate your life to serving others, right?
Mhm.
Good, bad, ugly, right or wrong. She is a community service person, right? She has dedicated her life to service. So I think
Mhm.
that's important to acknowledge, right? No, no one is ever going to make the perfect step, or that step is going to be something that you agree with. You would have done it different.
Mhm.
Where people are out here, they're making a difference. They're trying. They're giving of themselves, right? As she said before, she could go and practice law in one of the big cities, and pull down, nice six-figure salary, maybe even close to seven, and live a really good life for her and her family and her loved ones. But she is dedicated to Kitsap County, and she has decided, you know what, this is my heart, and I'm going to give everything to my heart. I'm putting words in your mouth, but that's based on what I heard, so I think that's accurate. Would you agree with that?
You're working those words. You're working those words. I, I do want to say that my campaign would love some volunteers. We meet on Saturdays at my office downtown Bremerton, 245 4th Street. You can either come and doorbell with us, or you can write postcards for us. And if you want to sign, you can send a note through my campaign website, or you can shoot yeah, that's probably the fastest way. Or shoot me a text at 360-271-3381, office number, and you can leave your address there, and we can drop it off. Or you
Say
can
that slower
again
for
be
me. Say the phone number slower. 360
360-271-3381.
3381.
And you can also, if you are around tomorrow morning, you can grab a sign from the office as well. So tomorrow morning at 10:30.
All right, so that is in the chat. Yeah, Reverend Ellington just said, where can I get a sign? 245 4th Street. And then you can also call 360-271-3381. So I just put that in the chat for folks. And we definitely want to say that so people can hear and see it. Like I said, I really want to thank you. I applaud you for coming on. I hope that your opponent will come on and then talk about why they believe they should be elected, because balance is important.
Mhm.
Uh, but you've talked about why it's important to you and why you're running, what you've done, and how you will continue to do the work regardless. I thought that was a great question by Reverend Ellington. It's like, hey, well, if you lose, do you pack up your bag and you go and do something else? It's like, well, no, I'm the president of NAACP, and I'm the, what are you for KCR? You're the board president, the
And I'm on the Washington State Bar Foundation board as
in
board
the
president.
Washington Bar, right? So you're embedded in the
I'm
computer.
I'm I'm invested in our community.
So what you're saying is you ain't going nowhere.
No, and we're in the process of hiring our new executive director at KCR, and we hope to finish up that process here mid-October. And as I said, as with anything, this is a volunteer position. Not everybody's happy. People have motivations for different things, and I am running a positive campaign on my work ethic. And again, the reason why there's so much support, if you look at my webpage, is because of those relationships I've built. So when things come that are negative, look to the information that's there, to people who know me, people who've worked with me. And without the community support, I can't win the election, because we work for you. When there's a campaign, when there's an election, the people elect. You have the power to make change in your vote. Your vote is your voice. Don't let the wolf in sheep's clothing fool you. Don't let more of the same continue in a way that our community continues to be harmed, because the right sound bites are being said. Just as you ask me the hard questions, you should ask every candidate the hard questions.
That is the plan. Oh yeah, that is the plan. That they're in for it. They got to come on down. And in full disclosure, right? As Tracy is running KCR, Tracy knows I have issues with KCR. There are problems with KCR.
Yes.
I have
Oh, yeah.
serious grievances with that.
Mhm.
Now, at the same time, right? This is the community organization, and we've got to find a way to move forward. And so I have, the housing manager from KCR come on every Monday onto the podcast. So shout out to Matt Garrett for that. So, there can be issues that exist in systems that need to be dismantled and changed. But at the same time, if that's what the system is in place, you can't just reject the system. It's just not going to go away. So, you can't go around it. You can't go under it. You got to go through it, right? But you have to be willing to engage.
And like you're saying, and when you're trying to make change, you become the enemy.
Well, you do become the enemy, right? And so, but you could do something different, and it's one of the things that I'm trying to tell folks, right? So Tracy's here, so I could say, well, you know what? I'm not going to say anything ill about KCR because Tracy's here, and that might harm her. No, I'm not going to do that. I could say, well, I'm upset with KCR for this, that, and the other, so I'm not going to have Matt Garrett on, and we have great conversations, and he shares information, and we have good rapport. I cannot do that. That's something different that hasn't been done in the past, right? It's like, you did something bad, I'm done with you, that's it. It's like, no. You've done something bad. We may need some corrective action, or we may need some change, but how do we go forward and serve our community and help our people? That's what has to change, and that's what I see happening here in this community. So I so much appreciate you, Tracy, for coming on. Again, voting is coming up. Learn who folks are. I've sent you the information if you want to get involved in her volunteer campaign to help her out. That's a lot of hard work. Again, that phone number is 360-271-3381, and that is 245 4th Street. Now, as I like to end my shows now, I'm a huge advocate for Black men.
I am here to tell you, brothers, we are not criminals by birth, perennial rapists, incapable intellects, man-children, sperm donors, child support wellsprings, success objects, walking phalluses, ATM machines, lottery tickets, unintelligent henchmen, valueless assassins, pro bono mercenaries, unpaid bodyguards, interchangeable stepfathers, child discipline proxies, unpaid repairmen, workhorses, emotional tampons, or any other socially accepted dehumanizing stereotype. We are thinkers, inventors, innovators, leaders, fathers, and men. Embrace your humanity, know your worth, and extend your time, attention, and resources only to those
Hold
who
on,
can
David.
you. And
Give me
remember,
1 second.
your worth is not defined by meeting other people's narcissistic, selfish, and
Can you
unrealistic
hear me?
needs. You define your worth.
David.
Peace.
All right. Reverend
Hello?
Ellington said that he looks forward to working with you in the future.
I'm on a podcast that I need to. I'm saying hi to.
Say hi to the podcast, everyone. Can they hear us, Tracy?
I don't know.
Can you hear us?
My niece just came in. I'm gonna say hello. What are we doing?
Tell them whoever you're on the phone with. You're on YouTube. You're on Twitch. You're on Facebook. You're on a bunch of platforms. You know.
I know. I'm like, I'm on a podcast.
Well,
Gotta
right.
go.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I thank you, Tracy, for your time. Everyone, stay tuned. We have more shows for you. We will be back Monday. Please subscribe, like, and share. Set your reminders because I do podcasts in the middle of the night. I do them in the morning. If there's some hot news that I think that you need to be privy to, or if there's something on my mind, I'll come out. So go ahead and do that. Until next time, for Tracy Flood, I am Marwan Cameron. And for Okoye, Deborah, Christina, and Martitha, thank you so very much. We will see you next time.